Everyone always talks about how long the penis is, but have you ever wondered what is the average vaginal length? I'm Dr. Rena Malik, urologist and pelvic surgeon, and today we're going to talk all about average vaginal length. Now, on this channel, you've heard me talk about the average penile length. Now, when you take studies looking at either erect penile length or stretched penile length, which is a surrogate of erections, you find that the average penile length around the world is 5.4 inches, with 95% of men having penises ranging from 4.2 to 6.7 inches.
Wow. Is that the reason why we're having so much infidelity on the part of women? 4.2 to 6.7. Now, if you're a man and you don't have to worry about that, be very happy. Be very happy because 4.2 to 6.7, hey, makes me wonder why we're having so much infidelity on the part of women. But let's continue.
Yes, 6.7 inches, and 99.7% of men have penises shorter than 7.3 inches. So in order for men to be able to fully penetrate women, the vaginal size needs to be able to accommodate that erect penile length. So you may wonder, what is the average size of the vagina? Now let's start by telling us what the research tells us about average vaginal dimensions. Now, several studies have examined this in detail. A study published in the International Urogynecology Journal looked at MRI scans of 80 healthy women, and then they measured vaginal dimensions, and they found that the average vaginal length was 9.8 centimeters or 3.9 inches, and it ranged from 5 to 14 centimeters or 2 to 5.7 inches. Now, before you go, whoa, that is much smaller than I thought it was, I want you to realize that during arousal, the vaginal length and width also increase. So they may nearly double in size to accommodate the erect penile length. Now,
that makes sense. That makes sense. So while you have some women that look tiny, they're very small in stature, but they can take a big man down, if you know what I mean, right? I could understand that. That makes sense to me, right? And it should make sense to most men that have been around the block, all right?
vaginal width was measured also in the study, and interestingly, it was different depending on where in the vagina you measured it, meaning at the opening, it was more narrow, and as you got closer to the cervix, it became wider. So on average at the opening, it was 17 millimeters or 0.6 inches. And it increased to 45 millimeters or 1.8 inches closest to the cervix. And that could range from anywhere from 9 millimeters at the smallest near the opening to 81 millimeters at the widest or 3.2 inches. Now, another study in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology looked at 3,200 women who were already going to a pelvic floor clinic, and they found the exact same average vaginal length of 9.4 centimeters or 3.7 inches. Another study at Elizabeth Garrett Anderson Hospital in London took these measurements in 50 premenopausal women and found the average vaginal length about 9.6 centimeters or 3.8 inches. And it ranged from 2.6 to 4.9 inches in the study. And lastly, a study again published in the International Urogynecology Journal looked at sexual function in over 500 women. And part of that study, they also did measurements. And the average vaginal length there was 9.1 centimeters for sexually active women and 8.9 centimeters for those who were not sexually active, which ranged anywhere from 5 to 13 centimeters or 2 to 5.1 inches. But bottom line, research on average vaginal length is 9 to 10 centimeters with a really wide normal range, anywhere from 6.5 to 12.5 centimeters. Of course, it's important to realize that the vagina is wider near the top of the cervix and smaller near the opening. Now, many of you know that the vagina changes during arousal because there's increased lubrication. But as I mentioned earlier, it also increases in size. In terms of lengthening, the vagina increases in length in a process called tenting. The uterus and the cervix pull up and back, which creates more space in the vaginal canal. And this can add about 1 to 2 inches to the vaginal length. Now, there's also widening because the tissues of the vagina relax and expand, allowing for more flexibility and potentially easier penetration. Now, what affects vaginal length? Because a lot of people have misconceptions that certain things will make you looser. Studies have found a few key things. One is age. So vaginal length does decrease by age by about 0.08 centimeter for every 10 years of age. So very minimal, but it does.
Wow, that's interesting. That's an interesting fact to know. A lot of women should definitely understand this information.
Height and weight can affect it. Taller and heavier women tend to have slightly longer vaginas. So for each 10 centimeter increase in height, you see a 0.09 centimeter increase in vaginal length. And menopause. So being postmenopausal was linked to about a 0.17 centimeter decrease in vaginal length. And having a hysterectomy was associated with a 0.63 centimeter decrease in vaginal length on average. And other pelvic surgeries also can change length, and they saw that other pelvic reconstructive surgeries were linked to about a 0.22 centimeter decrease in vaginal length. Now, while these factors do show differences, these are really, really minute differences and probably have no clinical significance on how sex feels or how comfortable sex can be for a female partner. And over a lifetime, the vagina may shorten by less than 1 centimeter due to aging. So you may be wondering, like, okay, why are some women then looser than others? So yes, the vagina can change because of laxity changes due to a variety of factors that I'm gonna cover, but no, having more sex doesn't make the vagina loose, and it's not gonna make it more lax. However, things like genetics, neurologic conditions, pelvic floor conditions, or even hormonal status can affect the size and elasticity of the vaginal tissues and the looseness of the vagina. Most often it's due to what we call pelvic floor weakness, or neurologic or collagen disorders that lead to weak pelvic floor muscles. And sometimes these can be treated with pelvic floor physical therapy to help strengthen those muscles or doing Kegel exercises. Now, the take-home point is that the normal range of vaginal length is really wide, but average vaginal length is significantly smaller than average penile length. And given that it's going to expand with arousal and requires time for arousal, you're going to be able to have the average vaginal length and the average penile length be very comfortable, enjoyable, and pleasurable for the female partner. And so there are factors, of course, like age, height, weight, and menopause, and prior surgeries that may affect vaginal length to a really small degree, but these changes are probably not noticeable or even significant for most women. Having more partners does not change vaginal length or size. So
I don't agree with that. Doc, listen, I know you're a doctor, but I'm a man, and there are a lot of us out there. And having more sexual partners, when a woman have more sexual partners, there are changes that women bodies go through. There are changes that their vajay goes through. And we as men have experienced this. Now, with all due respect, Doc, I understand you're a female and you have the medical experience to explain this. But as men with the real world experience, we can tell you that dealing with a virgin and a promiscuous woman is far different, is worlds apart. And we feel the difference in terms of size, depth, elasticity. It just feels totally different. All due respects. Let's continue.
So I hope you guys found this interesting and helpful. The most important take home is that if you have an average penile length, you will very easily be able to satisfy a female with average vaginal length. Now, of course, everyone is individual, and some may have larger than average or longer than average vaginas, some may have shorter than average vaginas, but at the bottom line is the majority of people will fit together and have great sex.
And that's it for this segment. I definitely will be covering the video she did on penile size, length, etc. All right. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. And like I always say, question everything, because if you don't, you may fall for anything. Think and say, have a good day.